My wife went to the bank every Monday for 45 years. When she died, I finally found out why, and it broke me. The day my wife died, I learned that love can still surprise you, even after 45 years of marriage. I was standing alone in our kitchen, holding her favorite mug, still warm from the tea she never got to finish. The house was too quiet. The kind of quiet that presses against your chest and makes it hard to breathe. I remember thinking I already knew everything about her. Every habit, every story, every flaw and every kindness. I was wrong. 3 days after the funeral, I found the bank book. It was hidden in the back of a drawer I had never opened, tucked beneath old recipes and faded photographs. The cover was worn thin, like it had been held too many times by nervous hands. Inside, every single Monday was marked: deposits, small ones, consistent ones. Going back 45 years, my hands began to shake. My wife had gone to the bank every Monday for 45 years. She told me it was just routine. Groceries, bills, nothing special. But this was something else. And when I finally understood why she did it, I sat down on the floor and cried like a man who had just realized he had been loved far more deeply than he ever deserved. Let me tell you about my wife. Her name was Eleanor. She wasn't loud or dramatic. She didn't command attention when she walked into a room. But people felt calmer when she was there, like the world made a little more sense. We met when we were young and broke, and sure that love alone would be enough to save us. In some ways, it was. In other ways, it wasn't. I worked construction, long hours, hard labor. Some weeks I came home too tired to talk. Some years I came home bitter. Life didn't turn out the way I imagined it would. And I carried that disappointment like a stone in my pocket. Eleanor carried something too. But I didn't know it then. Every Monday morning, without fail, she would put on her coat, kiss my cheek, and say she was going to the bank. I never questioned it. It became background noise in our life, like the ticking of a clock you stop noticing. We raised 2 children, paid off the house, fought about money more times than I can count. There were months when we barely scraped by. Years when joy felt distant. And through it all, every Monday, she went to the bank. Sometimes she came home smiling, sometimes quiet. Sometimes with red eyes she blamed on the wind. I never asked. That is one of my greatest regrets. When she got sick, everything changed fast. One doctor visit turned into many. Treatments turned into hospital stays. Our conversations became shorter, softer. We spoke more with our eyes than with words. One night, near the end, she held my hand and said, "You'll be okay." I laughed and told her not to talk like that. She smiled the kind of smile that hurts later. After she was gone, people told me I was strong. They said she had lived a good life. They said time would help. Time didn't help. Silence just got louder. That's when I found the bank book. I went to the bank the following Monday, out of some strange instinct. Like my body remembered something my mind hadn't caught up to yet. The building smelled the same. Polished floors, quiet voices. I stood in line, holding the little book, feeling like an intruder in my own life. The teller was young. She looked at the book, then at me, then called her manager. The manager was an older woman. She studied my face for a long moment before speaking. "You're Eleanor's husband," she said softly. I nodded. "She loved you very much." That sentence alone nearly broke me. She invited me into a small office and closed the door. Then she told me the truth. 45 years ago, shortly after our first child was born, Eleanor had opened a separate account. She came in every Monday and deposited whatever she could spare. Sometimes it was a decent amount. Sometimes it was just a few dollars. But she never missed a week. The account wasn't for shopping or emergencies. It was for me. She told the bank that if anything ever happened to her, the money was to be released to me with a letter. The manager handed me an envelope. My name was written on it in Eleanor's careful handwriting. I didn't open it right away. I couldn't. I drove home in a fog, sat at the kitchen table, and stared at it like it might disappear if I blinked. When I finally opened it, my hands were trembling so badly I could barely hold the paper. Her letter began simply. "My love, if you are reading this, then I am gone. And I am so sorry you have to feel this pain. I stopped there and cried until my chest ached. She wrote about our life, about our struggles, about the nights I came home angry at the world, about the days she saw fear in my eyes when bills piled up. She wrote, "I knew you felt like you failed sometimes. I knew you worried about what would happen to you if I wasn't there." I don't remember ever telling her that. She continued, "So I started saving. Not because I didn't trust you, but because I loved you. I wanted you to feel safe one day, even if I couldn't be there to say it." She explained the Monday routine, how it gave her peace, how every deposit felt like a promise kept. "I never wanted you to know," she wrote, "because this was my way of loving you quietly." The amount in the account was more money than I had ever seen at once. But it didn't feel like wealth. It felt like proof. Proof that while I was worrying about surviving, she was planning for my future. Proof that while I thought I was carrying us both, she was carrying me too. The twist came a week later. I found another envelope in the same drawer. Inside was a second bank book. This one wasn't for me. It was for our children. Separate accounts. Same Monday deposits. Same consistency. Same quiet devotion. Eleanor had been saving for everyone, all these years, without asking for recognition, without expecting thanks. I realized then that the strongest love doesn't announce itself. It just shows up, again and again, even when no one is watching. The final page of her letter read, "Use this money to live, not to mourn. Be kind to yourself. And remember, you were always enough for me." I go to the bank every Monday now, not to deposit money. I sit on the same bench she used to wait on. I close my eyes. I remember her coat, her smile, her patience. I talk to her in my head. I tell her I finally understand. Love isn't always loud. Sometimes it looks like a woman quietly walking into a bank every Monday for 45 years, carrying faith instead of fear, and realizing that too late is a pain I will carry forever. But it's also a gift, because now I know. I was never alone. I was deeply, fiercely, quietly loved. I thought that would be the end of the story. I thought once I knew the reason, once I understood her secret, the ache would slowly soften. People say closure is supposed to bring peace. They don't tell you that sometimes it opens a deeper wound. After discovering the second bank book, I couldn't sleep for nights. I kept replaying moments from our life, looking at them through a new lens. Every time Eleanor said, "It's okay," when money was tight. Every time she reassured me when I doubted myself. Every time she chose silence over complaint. She wasn't ignoring her own needs. She was protecting my dignity. That realization hurt more than losing her, because I started to see how often I had been emotionally absent. I was there physically, yes. I paid bills. I fixed things around the house. I provided in the ways I thought mattered. But I had missed the quiet language of her love. A week later, our daughter came over. She noticed the bank book on the table and asked about it. When I told her everything, she covered her mouth and started crying. "She did that for us?" she asked. I nodded. Our son reacted differently. He went quiet. Then he said something that stunned me. "She used to take me with her sometimes when I was little." Remember? I didn't. He said Eleanor would buy him a small treat afterward and tell him, "This is our secret." At the time, he thought it was just a game. It wasn't a game. It was trust. The more we talked, the more memories surfaced. Little things. Like how she insisted on keeping old envelopes. How she reused jars. How she always said, "We don't need much to be okay." She wasn't being modest. She was being intentional. I decided to do something I had never done before. I went through Eleanor's old journals. I had avoided them at first. It felt invasive. But one afternoon, when the house felt unbearably empty, I opened one. Her handwriting filled the pages, steady and calm. She wrote about fear. About hoping I wouldn't burn out from carrying so much pressure. About praying silently that I would one day see myself the way she saw me. One entry stopped me cold. "I worry he thinks his worth is measured by money. If only he knew how rich our life already feels to me." That sentence crushed me. All those years I thought I wasn't enough. And all those years, I already was. Then came the unexpected twist I never saw coming. A month after her death, I received a call from the bank manager again. She asked if I could come in. When I arrived, she looked nervous. She told me Eleanor had left instructions to delay something until a specific condition was met. What condition? I asked. She slid a small envelope across the desk. Until you came back here on your own. Inside was a final note. It read, "If you're reading this, it means you chose to return. That tells me you're ready." Ready for what? I wondered. The manager explained that Eleanor had set aside a portion of the money for something very specific. A donation. One that could only be made with my approval. The beneficiary was a local shelter for families struggling financially. I laughed through tears. Of course it was. Eleanor never wanted the money to sit unused. She wanted it to become hope for others. That night, I sat alone and talked to her out loud for the first time. I told her I was angry, that I wished she had trusted me with her fears, that I wished she had let me carry some of that weight. Then I apologized, because I realized she had carried it because she loved me, not because she doubted me. I approved the donation. Standing in that shelter weeks later, watching families receive help, I felt something shift inside me. The pain didn't disappear, but it transformed. Grief turned into purpose. I started volunteering every Monday, same day she used to go to the bank. At first, it felt symbolic. Later, it felt necessary. People there didn't know my story. They just saw an old man handing out food, listening, smiling softly. But in my heart I knew. This was Eleanor's legacy moving through me. Years have passed now. I still miss her every day. I still reach for her in the middle of the night sometimes. I still catch myself saving small amounts of money, almost unconsciously, and smiling at the habit. But I no longer feel frozen. I feel guided. Love didn't end when she did. It just changed form. If there is one lesson my wife left me, it's this. The deepest love is often invisible. It doesn't demand attention. It doesn't keep score. It prepares for storms you may never even notice. And if you're lucky enough to realize it before it's too late, don't stay silent like I did. Ask questions. Listen closely. Appreciate the quiet sacrifices. Because sometimes, the greatest proof of love is a woman walking into a bank every Monday for 45 years. Just to make sure the people she loved would be okay when she was gone. I thought that would finally bring me peace. I thought once I honored her wish, once I carried her kindness forward, the grief would loosen its grip. But grief is strange. It doesn't leave in one dramatic moment. It stays in small ways, in quiet evenings, in empty chairs, in habits that no longer have a purpose. One Monday morning, almost a year after she passed, I didn't feel like going anywhere. My body felt heavy. My heart felt tired. For the first time since her death, I considered staying home. I sat in the living room, staring at the door, and whispered, "I can't today, Ellie." And then something happened that changed everything. There was a knock. No one ever knocked on my door anymore. When I opened it, a young woman stood there holding a small envelope. She looked nervous, like she wasn't sure she was in the right place. "Are you Eleanor's husband?" she asked. I nodded. Her eyes filled with tears instantly. "My name is Sarah," she said. "I don't know how to explain this without sounding strange, but your wife saved my life." Those words made my knees weak. I invited her in. We sat across from each other at the same table where I had read Eleanor's letters. Sarah told me she had been a single mother years ago, barely surviving, living in her car with a baby. She said one day she had gone into the bank, desperate, trying to close an account she couldn't afford anymore. That's when Eleanor noticed her. She didn't ask questions. Sarah said. She just sat next to me and started talking like we were old friends. Eleanor had helped her connect with a shelter, paid for a week of groceries, even slipped her some cash and told her it was from a Monday Miracle Fund. I laughed softly through tears. That sounded exactly like her. Sarah reached into her bag and pulled out the envelope. She told me that if anything ever happened to her, I should find you. She said, "Tell him he was part of the reason I believed in kindness." I opened the envelope. Inside was a single line in Eleanor's handwriting. "Love grows best when it's passed on." After Sarah left, I sat in silence for a long time. That's when it finally hit me. Eleanor's secret wasn't just about money. It was about belief. Belief that small, Consistent acts matter. Belief that love doesn't need recognition to be real. Belief that doing good quietly is sometimes the most powerful thing you can do. From that day on, I stopped seeing Mondays as reminders of loss. They became invitations. I started speaking at the shelter. Not about myself. About Eleanor. About quiet strength. About patience. About faith during long, unseen years. People listened. Some cried. Some started their own Monday habits. Not with money. With time. With kindness. With forgiveness. One day, a young man approached me after a talk. He said, "I've been angry at my wife for years. I think I need to go home and listen." I smiled. That night, at home, I stood in front of Eleanor's photograph and said something I should have said decades ago. "Thank you for loving me the way I needed, even when I didn't know how to ask." I don't believe love ends with death anymore. I believe it echoes. In people you help. In lives you touch. In lessons that arrive too late but still matter. I still go to the bank sometimes. Not inside. I just sit outside and watch people rush in and out, unaware of the quiet stories being written around them. I wonder how many secrets of love pass us by, because they don't announce themselves loudly enough. If Eleanor taught me anything, it's this. Pay attention to the ordinary routines, the repeated sacrifices, the quiet choices. Because somewhere in those small, unnoticed moments, someone may be loving you in ways you won't understand until it's almost too late. And if you're lucky, you'll understand just in time to carry it forward. For a long time after that, life settled into a strange calm. Not happiness, not sadness either, something in between. I woke up every morning expecting Eleanor to be there, then reminding myself she wasn't. I learned how to live with that pause in my chest. The one that comes right after you open your eyes and realize the world has changed forever. Mondays became my anchor. Some weeks at the shelter were quiet. Other weeks were overwhelming. Families came in with the same fear I once carried silently. Men who believed their value was only in what they earned. Women exhausted from holding everything together without being seen. I never preached. I just listened. That's what Eleanor always did. One winter evening, a storm hit hard. Power outages across the city. The shelter was crowded, tense, loud. A little boy sat alone in the corner, hugging a torn jacket, staring at the floor. Something about him stopped me. I sat beside him and asked his name. "Daniel," he whispered. He reminded me of our son at that age. Same guarded eyes. Same way of pretending to be strong too early. He asked me a question that caught me off guard. "Do moms ever get tired of being brave?" I swallowed. I told him the truth. That yes, they do. But they're brave anyway because love doesn't wait for comfort. He nodded like he understood far more than a child should. When his mother came to pick him up later, she thanked me. Said he hadn't spoken all day until that moment. As they walked away, I felt Eleanor's presence so strongly it almost hurt. Not like a memory, like a hand on my shoulder. That night, I dreamed of her for the first time in months. She was standing in the kitchen, the same way she used to on Monday mornings, buttoning her coat. She looked peaceful. "You're doing okay," she said. I woke up crying, but it wasn't the painful kind this time. It was release. Years passed quietly after that. My hair turned whiter. My steps slowed. But my heart felt fuller than it had in decades. One afternoon, I received a letter in the mail. No return address. Inside was a simple note. My parents were helped by the shelter years ago. They didn't survive, but I did. Someone there told me about a man who comes every Monday. Thank you for staying. I held that letter for a long time. I realized something then. Eleanor didn't just prepare me financially. She prepared me emotionally. She knew that if I stopped being useful, I would stop feeling alive. So she left me a path to walk. One step at a time. One Monday at a time. Near my 70th birthday, my children surprised me. They gathered old photos, letters, journal entries, and bound them into a book. On the first page, they wrote, "To Dad, who finally saw how deeply he was loved." I laughed and cried at the same time. That night, sitting alone, I spoke out loud again. "I see it now, Ellie, all of it. I understood that love isn't proven in grand gestures. It's proven in consistency. In showing up when it's boring, when it's hard, when no one is watching." I wish I had told her sooner. I wish I had asked why she went to the bank every Monday. But life doesn't give us perfect timing. It gives us lessons. And sometimes, it gives us the chance to become the lesson for someone else. If you're listening to this, and there's someone in your life whose love feels quiet, ordinary, routine, don't overlook it. Ask questions. Say thank you. Be present. Because one day, you may find yourself standing alone, holding proof of a love that was building in silence for decades. And when that day comes, I hope it doesn't freeze you like it froze me. I hope it moves you, just like Eleanor moved me. Every single Monday, there came a morning when I didn't wake up with that familiar ache. It startled me. For years, pain had been my first companion of the day. But that morning, there was only quiet. Not the heavy, suffocating kind. A gentle one, like the pause between two heartbeats. I sat on the edge of the bed and whispered, "Are you still with me?" No answer. And yet, I felt steadier than ever. That day, I didn't go to the shelter. For the first time in a long while, my body told me to rest. I walked instead, slowly, past the park where Eleanor and I used to sit on Sundays, past the grocery store where she once argued with a cashier because they overcharged me by $2. She always fought for me. I smiled at the memory. At the park, I sat on a bench and watched couples pass by. Young ones holding hands tightly like the world might pull them apart. Older ones, walking quietly side by side, not needing to prove anything. That's when I noticed an old man a few benches away, crying softly. No drama, no sounds. Just tears sliding down his face as he stared at a folded piece of paper. I hesitated. Then I did what Eleanor would have done. I sat beside him. He didn't look at me, just said, "She used to leave me notes everywhere, lunchbox, wallet, car." He unfolded the paper. It said, "If you're reading this, I still love you." I felt my throat tighten. "She died last week," he continued. I thought I was ready. I told him the truth. No comfort lines. No false strength. "You're not ready," I said gently. "But you'll survive. And one day, you'll understand things she never explained." He looked at me then. Really looked. "How do you know?" I smiled sadly. "Because my wife went to the bank every Monday for 45 years, and I didn't know why until she was gone." We sat in silence after that. Two strangers connected by the same invisible thread. Before he left, he thanked me. Not for advice. For listening. That evening at home, I realized something important. Eleanor's love had changed the way I saw people. I no longer rushed past pain. I no longer avoided uncomfortable silences. I no longer believed strength meant hiding emotion. Strength meant staying. Weeks later, my doctor called me in for tests. "Routine," he said. But his eyes avoided mine. I already knew. Life has a way of balancing the scales. The diagnosis wasn't immediate doom, but it was clear. Time was no longer something I could assume I had plenty of. On the drive home, I didn't feel fear. I felt gratitude. Because Eleanor had unknowingly taught me how to face this too. I sat at the kitchen table that night and started writing letters. Not many. Just a few, one for each child, one for the shelter, one final one for myself. In my own letter, I wrote about Eleanor, about the bank, about Mondays, about how love doesn't shout, it repeats. I wrote, "If you ever wonder whether your life mattered, remember this. You became kinder because of love." On my last visit to the shelter, I didn't tell anyone it would be my last. I just showed up, like always. Same day, same quiet routine. As I was leaving, Daniel ran up to me, older now, taller, smiling. "My mom says I'm brave," he said. I knelt down and looked him in the eyes. "You don't have to be brave all the time," I told him. "Just be kind." He nodded. That night, at home, I sat by the window and waited, not for death, for peace, and it came gently. In my final thoughts, I saw Eleanor walking into the bank again. Same coat, same calm expression. Only this time, she turned back and smiled at me, like she was saying, "You're okay now." And she was right. Because love doesn't end. It just waits quietly, like a Monday routine, for the right moment to be understood.